Section 4.1 Bernoulli Distribution. The aim of this video is to define properties, relationships, and applicability of Bernoulli and binomial distribution, and to calculate probabilities using Bernoulli and binomial distribution. Let's see some examples of the binomial distribution. For example, the number of heads and tails in a sequence of coin flips. Both coins for two different candidates in an election. So we have two candidates. The number of male-female employees in a company. The number of successful sales calls. They are either successful or unsuccessful. The number of defective products in a production run. They are either okay or defective. The number of days in a month your company's computer network experiences a problem. It's either okay or down. So the main characteristics of the Bernoulli distribution is that we have only two possible outcomes. Let's look into the Bernoulli distribution. So the Bernoulli distribution is used for experiments that result in one or two outcomes. So one of the outcomes is labeled as success and the other as failure. Now we have that the probability of success is going to be denoted by P, and P of course is a number in between 0 and 1. Now the probability of failure is 1 minus P. So the total sample space will have probability 1 minus P plus P equal to 1. Such a trial is called a Bernoulli trial. And we said that X is distributed as Bernoulli with probability of success equal to P. So we write it this way. The simplest Bernoulli trials is the fair toss of a coin. So what are the outcomes of flipping a coin? So we either have heads or tails. What is the successful outcome? So let's say that H is successful, and we denote it by 1, and tail is not successful, and we denote it by 0. So these 0 or 1 are the random variable. Now the probability of X being equal to 1, of X being successful, in this case is equal to 1/2. This is P. And the probability of failure is P of X equal to 0. And in this case is 1 minus P, which is 1 minus 1/2 equal to 1/2. They are equally likely. Another example. We have a Bernoulli trial that consists of the selection of a component from a population of components. And some of those are defective. The proportion of defective components is 20%. Okay, so we have two possible outcomes. So they are actually defective or they are working. Now, what is a successful working? We can select any of those as successful. So let's say that defective is the successful, and therefore is 1, and working is not successful, and therefore is 0. Now the probability of successful in this case, meaning being defective, is equal to 0.2, and the probability of not successful, in this case working, is x equal to 0 is 1 minus 0.2, which is equal to 0.8. We say that x is distributed as Bernoulli with probability p if for any Bernoulli trial we define the random variable x such as that if the experiment results in a success, then x is equal to 1 and otherwise is equal to 0. As only two values are possible, x is a discrete random variable, and the probability mass function can be written in the following way. P of x is equal to p if x is equal to 1, 1 minus p if x is equal to 0, and 0 otherwise. We can plot the probability mass function PMF in the following way. Let's say that x is distributed as Bernoulli with probability 0.5. Then the probability of 0 and 1 is equal to 0.5. Then we have to draw a rectangle centering 0 with height 0.5. The same for 0 and for 1. Now, if we have x distributed as Bernoulli with probability 0.8, then that means that 1 will have a probability of 0.8 and 0 will have a probability of 0.2. So the two rectangles in our case are going to be something like this and something like this. Now, how do we calculate the variance and the mean of Bernoulli random variable? Well, the random variable in our case x can take only the values of 0 and 1. So the definition of the mean of x, it will be the random variable 0 multiplied by its probability 1 minus p plus the random variable 1 multiplied by its probability p. So that gives us 0 multiplied by 1 minus p, 0 plus p. So this is equal to p. Now the variance has a little bit more of work. So we have our variable 0 minus the mean p squared multiplied by the probability 1 minus p plus the second variable 1 minus the mean p squared multiplied by its probability, which is p. Now let's expand this. So the first part is p squared multiplied by 1 minus p plus 1 minus p squared multiplied by p. Notice that we have two terms. In the first one we have p, and in the second one we have p. So we can factorize p, but we can also factorize 1 minus p and 1 minus p from this square. So factorizing p multiplied by 1 minus p, in the first term we are left with a p. So multiply with a p. And in the second term we are left with 1 minus p. So plus 1 minus p. Now notice that this p is cancelled with this p, and the left is 1. So we have p multiplied by 1 minus p multiplied by 1. So we have that the variance is equal to p multiplied by 1 minus p and multiplied by 1, which is the same thing.